Skip it up and that up. Unicorn kisses. Let's get into it. This video is being brought to you by Satisfy Gaming. Make playing your Switch in portable mode super ergonomic with the Satisfy Gaming grips. They also have case and grip bundles that let you keep the grip on your Switch and store it safely in their high quality cases. These grips make using your Switch in portable mode as comfortable as a Pro controller. Use the code ReviewTech10 to save 10% off your entire order. Link below in the description. So whenever I talk about how the prices of consoles need to be around $400 to $600 for next gen, I see a lot of people, and I understand the argument, it can be somewhat valid, where, Rich, you know what, people go down and plunk $1,000 on an iPhone, and that's actually cheap for the iPhone 11 Pro Max, and yet if you want to buy a console, people will refuse to spend more than $500 or $400 on it. I don't understand the double standard. Well, there's a reason for the double standard, and I agree with Paul Tassi from Forbes, and I'm glad he reminded me to actually talk about this because I wanted to talk about it anyway, so thank you, Paul. Shout out to you. Now, one of the things he says in his article that I don't agree with is that smartphones are an essential tool nowadays. Yes, I actually do agree with that. Even Intro Guy has a smartphone. Granted, you press something and it takes 5 minutes for it to actually open the app, but he does have a smartphone as well. But he says that that's the reason why companies like Apple can gouge for, iPhone 11 Pro Max, because it's a necessary tool. But in 2019, you could find amazing smartphones now for like $200, $300. So kind of don't agree with that thought process. I mean, we're just conditioned to accept the premium of high-end smartphones. But nowadays, you could get an excellent smartphone for $400. I'm actually still going to do an unboxing of the Red Magic 3S. And blame the unicorn kisses. That's an amazing phone. It has top of the line specs. There's a couple corners that they cut, but it has a high-end screen, top of the line specs, and you can get it for $400, $500. So I don't agree with that one from Paul, but this is where I do start agreeing with him. A lot of times when you say your plan is up and your contract is up with Verizon or Sprint or T-Mobile, a lot of times they throw in the phones for free, whether it be a Pixel 4 or an iPhone 11 or 11 Pro Max. They just throw them in. They'll give you a free one, or you pay monthly for the phone. You're playing footsie with me.
Say, oh, that's your foot.
Yeah, that is my foot.
Son of a bitch.
Intro Guy's playing footsie with me. But yet, all kidding aside, that is true. When you don't pay, 9 times out of 10, no one is going to the store for their new flagship phone and paying full price for it. With a console, 9.9 times out of 10 you are. Obviously, you may do some kind of financing at Best Buy or Amazon or whatever the case may be, but most cases, people are just buying them upfront cash or on their credit card or whatever the case may be. So you feel that price more. Whereas with a smart device, you don't feel the price because you're not paying for it in full up front. There's a lot of companies now that incentivize people to stick with them, like again, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, blah, 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 by kind of in a way either making it super cheap monthly to pay for the phone or just throwing it in for free.
I feel like Yoko Ono right now.
You are Yoko Ono.
Thanks.
And yet, Paul's final comment he makes or point he makes is that we've seen in the past what happens with overpriced consoles. The first one that comes to mind, or actually there's two of them that come to mind, PlayStation 3. Started out $600.
$599 US.
That was an insane amount of money in 2006 to pay for a console, and Sony tried to justify it saying, oh, you'll get a second job and sell your ass on the street to actually buy a PlayStation 3. And minus Resistance Fall of Man, when it first came out, there were virtually no other games that you wanted for the console. And it just, we have been conditioned to not expect consoles to be past a certain price point. Whether it's wrong or right, history has shown that high-priced consoles don't fare well. Want another example of that is go back to the days of the Panasonic 3DO or the 3DO company.
Have you experienced the awesome power of the Panasonic Real 3DO system?
Obviously.
The intense realism of Panasonic Real 3DO.
Apparently.
Or the mind-blowing graphics of Panasonic Real 3DO.
Definitely.
The Real 3DO system from Panasonic.
That launched at $700, which if you go to an inflation calculator, would now feel like $1,250 approximately, if you want to be exact, $1,245.99. Imagine the feeling of going to a store now and buying a PS5 for $1,250. Even I probably wouldn't do that. Or I probably would, because I'm a jackass.
I'm sorry I wasn't listening.
But yeah, also too, and Paul says this as well, is that a lot of times the console prices don't follow inflation. So that's why they usually stay around a certain price point. Even though I feel like the Pro and X, the upgrades, the mid-gen upgrades from the current generation kind of made us accustomed to paying a higher price. People wouldn't be okay if the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 launched at $800 or $700 or even honestly like $650. I think people would lose their minds at. I wouldn't really care about paying that price, but I can understand a lot of people being annoyed that those consoles are that expensive. So my point being is I agree with Paul Tassi. When you do the comparison between smartphones, premium smartphones, and how people pay for them compared to consoles, you got to remember there's a bunch of caveats, and a lot of times, like I said probably 15 times in this video, you ain't paying for this thing up front full price. So I agree, and I think that consoles need to be affordable in that companies need to make their money back, like Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, with game licensing. That's where the profit is. They need to take the loss first to get the console in people's homes and build the install base, and then profit later from third parties developing games for their consoles and then making a cut off of each game that's sold. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one. Blame the unicorn kisses.